Right, I have talked in theory about a location room and getting it ready for filming. Let's put that into practice. So this is the room we're going to set up to do some filming in. As you can see, it's not a massive room by any stretch of the imagination. It's got some things going for it. One, I've got two nice large windows, and those windows have got blinds that can come down, and those blinds are slightly translucent, which is perfect because it's a very, very hot day out there, very bright and sunny, and the sun is coming pretty much from that direction, so not quite coming straight through the windows, but definitely come through an angle, so we're getting the sun coming onto this side of the building, which is what I want. So we're going to have no problem illuminating just with available light, and I can use those blinds to control some of that. Now if the light was coming directly straight into this room and I had no means to control that light, then I'd be more worried. But as it is, I've got two windows providing plenty of light, and I've got blinds that I can pull down, and they're slightly translucent, so they're going to allow enough of the light in to illuminate on a day like this. Even though it's very bright, very strong direct light outside, by the time it gets into this room it'll be nice and soft. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm going to try and work principally just with available light. Through that window you can get an idea of just how strong that sunlight is out there. Really, really strong. What you would never want to be doing is getting somebody in that sort of light. If the direct sunlight was falling on them, they'd be just like that little baby's head in that kind of lamp stand, getting a lot of direct light. No good for us. Noise wise, it's obviously very quiet at the moment. Unusually quiet for this part of the world, so I don't think noise is going to be an issue. Plus I can close those windows. I'll close them just before filming. Until then, obviously I'll keep the air flowing in, but I can close them. I'm not going to be worried too much about noise. That's really good. So I'm going to shoot in the same direction that I'm now pointing. I'm going to get my contributor to sit somewhere in that direction, so they'll be looking more or less towards the windows, and I'll be trying to maximize the space I've got available to me by moving some of this furniture. Basically I want to clear that table and this closer settee, just to free up as much space as possible, give myself as much depth as I can. Right, so it's about an hour later. The room's pretty much exactly as I'd want it now. Let me show you what I've done to set the room up, get it ready for these little talking heads. To maximize the depth of the room, the space, the length, the gap between the camera and the subject, and to bring the subject as far from the back wall as possible, the background, I've put the camera right into the corner. Now obviously I'd normally be behind the camera, but in this case I'm just to the side of it, and I'm actually using my little 7-inch monitor to judge focus and stuff like that. And I've pulled that chair, nice simple chair, as far from that corner where I'm pointing towards as possible, just to kind of soften it out. Now I talked about clearing the background of things that could distract. Here's a classic one. Got this orange painting, very vibrant orange there, which was originally hanging there. So that was in shot. I couldn't kind of frame it out and keep the diagonal that I wanted. So very carefully, of course, taken that down, put it out. It's invisible to the camera there. Same with that white paper that was kind of blue tacked onto the wall. I've moved them out of the way. Behind the subject in the corner we're pointing towards, there was a very large lamp. I've taken the lamp out, had to unplug it, gently move it out of position, because it's so big, the shade, it was kind of encroaching on in the background. The key rule for all of these things is put it back as you found it. But yeah, that's another example there, moving that to free up that corner so it's nice and empty. Now that coffee table was in the middle of the room, and obviously it's going to be returned in the middle of the room afterwards, but in the meantime I've moved it out of the way. The same with that sofa, just to give myself enough space to kind of clear the shot, but no more. So the subject's actually going to sit with their knees or their legs right up against that sofa, but it's invisible. It's not visible on camera, but it really is just a case of using every available bit of space you can. Now, with a big filming job, we'd obviously try and find a way of getting that sofa out of the room. But I really haven't got license to mess this room around, so I'm just going to settle with that. I pushed it out of the way, but clearing space, that's the main thing, clearing space. One of the blinds I've put down, and that's doing a nice job of just stopping the direct light kind of bouncing in, nice and softening it up. This one I've left open. I mean, the light's not coming in directly into the frame, so I'm just letting that come into the room as is. I've closed the windows because with the noise, there's not much of an issue with noise, but there could be issues with the breeze coming through, and sometimes that gets picked up on a microphone if you don't have the correct sort of baffle on the microphone. So I want to avoid that. So even though the room's a little bit stickier than I'd like for filming, make sure those windows are closed. So in terms of light, as I say, we are using available light. We're using daylight in this room, but what I am using on top of that to supplement it is this, a reflector, which for my money is probably the best bang for buck sort of filming light modifier. You know, you can use it in photography. I've used it a lot in photography, but also in video. It just becomes incredibly useful when you just want to add a little, bounce a little light into one side of say the subject in this case, and you're going to add a bit of contrast between one side of the face and the other, which is obviously quite an advanced lighting principle. I wouldn't expect perhaps most people watching this to kind of to adopt that, but I wanted you to know the kind of thinking behind it, because that's just going to lift it again, just make it that much more kind of aesthetically pleasing. So that's just on a light stand. It's got a little threaded base here that you can mount onto one of these light stand, the spigot end of the light stand. It has a little slight tendency to kind of wobble, you know. You definitely can't use it outdoors with any wind. But I wanted to have the light stand perpendicular. So this is an example, I think, of, you know, just thinking around the problems and what can I use, and just making the best of any sort of situation you find yourself in. So to brace it, to keep it in that perpendicular angle, from another room, I've pinched, just for a short time, this lamp, this upright lamp. And the only purpose of that is, obviously it's not plugged in, I'm not using it for any lighting purposes, but it's just bracing this reflector and holding it in the sort of angle I want. So the light, some of the light that's coming into the room will get captured on that very shiny surface and bounce towards our subject, you know. And I think it just makes a nice difference.